Little Dennis, little Dennis. Yeah, look at him there. Look at him there, he looks cool. Oh, I like that. Hello, this is Sophie Lawson from sophielawson.com, and this is episode 126 of the So Free Art podcast, which is a little podcast that I do about the art and tings. And this is about the tings episode, and this one is the sequel to an episode from last month, which was called Face Masks and Freedom. So this is Face Masks and Freedom, the sequel, part 2. I imagine there's going to be quite a few of these for the rest of the year, because this is a very, very interesting situation, these face masks. I'm learning so much. I've got so much to say about this one. I've got tons of notes. If you're watching on YouTube at youtube.com/SophieLawson, you can see all my notes. What I'm going to do on this podcast, though, I'm going to go through my notes and talk about stuff, because like I said, I've learnt so much from the past month. And I also want to talk a little bit about the last episode, which I'll put in the show notes, which you can find at sophielawson.com. But because I realised quite a lot of things about that episode, I realised that, as I've said before, I was trying to what I think was happening was I was trying to basically have my cake and eat it, really. I was trying to achieve something without having to face the fear. I didn't have the courage to do something. So I'm going to talk about that. Little Kitty is going to start this one today, I think, because she's never started one of these, so she's quite excited. Little Kitty, doing. Oh, she was nice and delicate on that. Whereas Dennis slams it, little Kitty was far more delicate. And little Dennis, he was sleeping right then. She's just woke him up. Little kitty kisses. They're in their little house, and I hope they're comfy today. Little Dennis, I think little Dennis is a bit sleepy today. So little Dennis is sleeping in his little house. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just go through my notes very quickly, super quickly, so you can get an idea of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about affirmations, lies of the mind, beliefs, reality, Black Lives Matter. We're going to talk about my progress with these face masks, Reiki Healing. We're going to talk about society as a whole, females and males, some of the lessons I've learnt, fears, courage, positive and negative, thoughts and actions, and also going to talk a little bit about the last episode. So on the last episode, it was the week before these face masks were made mandatory in England, and what was happening was I was in a very horrible place, because to me this is some sort of control experiment, like some sort of it doesn't feel right, basically. My heart has told me right from the beginning, this whole virus thing is some sort of, it's not right, it doesn't feel right. So, because it's not been feeling right, when they said you got to wear these face masks, I was like, no, this doesn't feel right. And I can see that if we're not careful, the little step of wearing the face masks, it could evolve into something very I would say like some sort of suppressing thing, like a force that would be so powerful you would basically be trapped, lose your freedom. So we've got to be very careful, I think. So I realised how important this is, to not wear the face masks. But the thought of not wearing a face mask when everyone else is wearing a face mask, I was scared. And I didn't have the courage to do it. So what I was trying to do was, I was trying to find a way to wear the face masks and pretend to myself that I wasn't wearing a face mask. So I said about wearing a face mask but putting a message on it saying something like we shouldn't be wearing these face masks. But the more I thought about that, after that podcast, I thought, but the thing is, you're still wearing the face mask. So all you're doing is you're tricking yourself into thinking that you're doing something when really you're still wearing the face mask. So at that point I realised the only thing I could do was not wear the face mask, and I couldn't do it. So for the first week I didn't have the courage, basically. I was too scared. So what happened was at work, I didn't go shopping. I stopped going shopping so I didn't have to put myself in a situation of wearing a face mask. And at work, I had allowed myself to wear a face shield at work. It's quite funny. This was my little way of saying I still haven't worn a face mask because I wore a face shield, even though it's the same thing. But that was my way of trying to... It was like my mind was trying to trick me, I suppose, into thinking I wasn't doing the thing that I didn't want to do, but I was. But what happened was, after a week of wearing this face shield at work, it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right at all, and I was feeling I got really quite, I suppose, almost, super anxious. Because I felt helpless. I felt like there is no way I cannot wear these face shields. There's no way I can go shopping without wearing a face mask. So I thought, what can I do? I felt completely helpless. It was horrible. It lasted about, it was probably just over a week. Really bad it got. And it got to the point where it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. Because I just felt... I suppose it did get a little bit suicidal. I was never going to do the suicide, but I was thinking, if I can't do this, which is not wear the face, if I haven't got the courage to do that, then I'm doomed. And I thought, if I'm doomed, the human race is doomed, really. Because it goes into something I've said before, which is, we are the universe. You are the universe, so if you can't change yourself, you're never going to change the universe. You are the universe, basically. You change yourself, the universe changes. Because I feel like we're all in our own little universe, even though the universes are all overlapping. It's quite weird. But, so I know how important this is. What actually saved me was two little things. The first thing was... a lady at work stopped wearing her face shield, and that actually gave me the courage to not wear mine. And as soon as that happened, all of a sudden, everybody stopped wearing their face shields at work. It was like a domino effect. This is how powerful it is, what we do. Yeah, this is why it's so powerful. You change yourself, you change what you're doing, it will change everyone else. Even though it doesn't... Because what happened was, I saw my Reiki healer, and I opened up to her like I've never done before. I was saying, I wish I'd recorded it. We had a little video chat. I said stuff to her I didn't even know I was thinking. That's when I said to her, the human race is doomed. We're all doomed. And I said, what difference does it make whether I wear these things or not? What difference does it make? I even said, even if I can find the courage to not wear these face masks, what difference does it make? And she basically turned around and said, well, if everyone thinks like that, then yes, we are doomed. I thought that was amazing. And it was then that I realised, don't even think about whether the human race is doomed. All you got to do is focus on, right now, finding the courage to not wear these face masks. What happened was, this is amazing. I had a fantastic realisation of something to do with affirmations and lies of the mind. God, there's so much here. I can feel like I could go all over the place. But basically, what happened was I realised our mind defaults to negative, which I think is based off of like our conditioning as we're growing up. But that conditioning that as we're growing up is based off of people who have been in their own conditioning growing up. In other words, at some point in the past, like yonks ago, something started, some sort of negative fear. Yeah, something somewhere started like a fear, a thought of fear. And that thought of fear, it just grew and grew. So everybody who was alive at that point had fear and anxiety. So then all the people who were born after that, they're conditioned into a fear and anxiety. It keeps going and it keeps going. So what happens is I'm born into a world with parents with fear and anxiety. It's not their fault because they were in the same thing. So what happens is all these thoughts that are in our head, because I noticed this, when was it? I think it was either last year or the year before. Yeah, maybe 2016. No, some in the last few years I noticed the thoughts in my head are not my thoughts. I'd always just taken it for granted that thoughts in my head are my thoughts. Why would you think they're not your thoughts? But what happens is when you start like meditating and stuff, you start being able to separate yourself from thoughts. And what you start realising is that I would say most of the thoughts, they're not your thoughts. And most of them, if not all of them, are actually negative. See, I started thinking to myself, why are all these thoughts negative? And it goes into that thing of, it's basically, as you're growing up, if you're being bombarded with negative thoughts, those, not negative thoughts, negative things in the environment, like people saying negative things and anxiety and stuff, it manifests as thoughts. So in the future, you've got all these negative thoughts in your head based off of like the past. And what happens is if you're not aware of what's going on, you just think those thoughts are you. So basically you start acting based off of these negative thoughts. So you start acting in fear and stuff. So basically what happened was I thought there was a thought in me that said you can't not wear the face masks. It was like saying basically it was fear. Fear was stopping me from being able to go into a shop and do my shopping, because I was thinking I felt like there's no way I can do it. So what I realised was, hang on a minute, this is a thought that's stopping me from being able to go into a shop without wearing a face mask. So I said, well, why can't I just make another thought which will allow me to do it? So basically what I've noticed is, if you're not doing anything, the thoughts in your head are negative, and they're negative lies. So the mind defaults to lying negatively. So it will say something like, for instance, before starting this podcast, I always had this thought in my head that says, you've got a horrible voice. And it would always say, you've got a horrible voice, you've got a horrible voice, you've got a horrible voice. So I believed that. So that always stopped me from doing a podcast, because I thought, well, I can't do the podcast, I've got a horrible voice. So what had happened was, this thing in my head had lied so much that it had actually turned into reality, because I did have a horrible voice. Because I believed, what happens is, you've got the negative lies in your head, they turn into beliefs because you believe them, because you don't even realise that it's possible to think of something else. That thought feels so real that it becomes a belief. Once it becomes a belief, you start acting to make that belief real, which then means that the thought is now real. So all of a sudden, those negative thoughts that started out as lies, they've now turned into real. It's now turned into the truth because of what you've been doing. But you was only doing it because you believed the lie. It's really weird, that. So what I've noticed is, these things I've been doing called affirmations, which I've been doing for about a year, maybe 2 years. What it is you wake up in the morning, and before you go to bed, you have like a positive affirmation. One of mine is, I say, I have a lovely, clear, confident voice. I repeat that in the morning, I repeat it at night, You keep repeating it, but the thing is, at first, you don't believe it. And you don't believe it because it's not real. It's because an affirmation is something that you want to manifest, but it's not real. It's not real at the minute. So what I've noticed is these affirmations are actually positive lies. So what I've noticed is, what happens is, these positive lies, you keep repeating these positive lies consciously, and it fights off the subconscious negative lies. So what happens is, you keep repeating these affirmations, and then all of a sudden you start to believe it. Once you believe it, you start acting as if it's real, because you believe it, which means it becomes real, which means all of a sudden these affirmations, they're not positive lies anymore. They're real. So what I've noticed is, you've got these two things going on here. You've got negative lies, which are subconscious. You've got positive lies, which are conscious affirmations. And both of them, they're equally powerful. It all depends what you believe. That's it. You've got the free will to decide what you're going to believe. And whatever you believe becomes real. So, it even goes into this virus. If people believe that there's a virus, then there's a virus. If people believe that there isn't a virus, there isn't a virus. So in other words, if everyone believes that there is no virus, there's going to be no virus. And I know that sounds like, well, that's impossible. Because if there's a virus, then there is a virus. But there isn't. There's only a virus if you believe there's a virus. And it goes into how this reality itself is like some sort of dream. Nothing is what you think it is, but it is what you think it is because you think it is. So if you think something is what it is, then it is. But you can understand as well that it's not what you think it is. But because you've been conditioned to believe it is what it is, even though it isn't, it becomes what it is, or it becomes what you think it is. But it's not really that. So all you've got to do is you've got to somehow focus on what it really is. Yeah, which that basically allows you to see the truth. That's what it is. It's all about looking at the. I'll tell you what it is. Reality is thoughts. That's what it is. Reality is thoughts. And this goes into that thing about how everyone's in their own universe. Everyone's in their own universes because everyone's got different thoughts. Everyone's believing different thoughts. So if everyone's believing different thoughts, everyone is in their own universe, even though they are in the same universe. So this just shows me how powerful thoughts are everything. This is amazing. This is why it's so important that we start looking at these thoughts. Yeah, thoughts are everything. But it's cool. So my progress at the minute, at first I didn't have enough courage, and I felt helpless. I had the Reiki Healing, and it allowed me to see that. Basically, what happened was I was believing I couldn't do it. So because I was believing I couldn't do it, I couldn't do it. As soon as I realised actually I can do this, I was still scared. But what I did was I went shopping into a shop. I didn't have a face mask. Nobody said anything. I've since been into a cinema, watched a cinema with my sister, watched The Matrix in 4DX, which was amazing. I thought that was quite funny as well, because The Matrix is all about freedom, setting yourself free, which is what this whole thing is about. So I've been to the cinema, didn't wear the face mask. Also went to the bank, cashed in a cheque. I didn't wear the face masks. So what's happening is, the more I'm doing it, the more I'm realising I can do it. So it was just finding the courage at the start to be able to do it. And now it's just gonna sort of snowball, really. Because once you do it, you realise you can do it, then you can pretty much always do it. So it's just that first bit is really hard because the I feel like the thoughts are saying you can't do it, and because you haven't done it yet, you haven't proved that you can do it. So in other words, it's also fear of what might happen. I had this fear of it was fear of conflict. I thought, what if I go into a shop and somebody says, oh, you got to wear this face mask? I thought, there's no way I didn't have the belief that I would be able to stand up for myself. So this is what I'm learning. What this whole thing is teaching me is I'm finding courage. I'm finding self-assertiveness, because I'm starting to basically listen to my feelings. Instead of what's happened is, I think there's a lot of people, and I know there is because I've been talking to people about this. There's lots of people who know that this face mask thing is it's just some sort of crazy thing. It's not, it's bonkers basically. So they know how stupid it is, but they're still wearing the face masks because they've got the fear of, oh, I've got to wear it. And also, when you see everyone else wearing it, you think, well, I've got to wear it because they're wearing it. This is why one person stops wearing it, somebody else might think, well, hang on a minute, maybe I don't have to wear it. And then that could snowball. And then nobody would be wearing them. But the problem is, if it's what we are at this point, I think this is crunch time. I really do think that this is like pivotal for the human race. I think it's key, because if we don't take action, what I'm saying, this is it. The feeling was inside of me saying, don't wear the face masks. The fear of feeling like I had to wear the face mask, it was stronger than this feeling, because I didn't. The courage is the feeling. The feeling it gives you the courage. The fear was stronger. So what I had to do was I had to focus, instead of focusing on the fear of what happens if somebody starts confronting me about not wearing these face masks, is because I was focusing on that, which was actually stopping me having the courage, because I was getting scared. Instead, what I did was I focused on freedom. I focused on, imagine if I don't have the courage, I'm going to basically, I focused on why not to wear the face mask instead of what might happen, and that grew the courage. That was quite amazing. There's something here that was what was it? There's something really amazing there. Oh, I've lost it. What was it? Fear was that. The courage thing. I don't know. I've lost it. But there was some little things are linked. No. Well, I lost. There was a really good thing there. What was I talking? The fear. The fear was bigger than the courage. So what I had to do was focus on the positive, and it outgrew the fear. I don't know. But basically what I've noticed is this is all about fear and, well, love, I suppose. And courage is a form of love. Ah, that was it. Yes. Because I thought to myself, if what's the worst thing that can happen if I go into a shop without a face mask on? They say, get out. And so then I can't do any shopping. Would I rather not have my food shopping, or not have freedom? Freedom is way more important. And then I thought, what if I go to cinema and they say, get out, and I can't watch The Matrix? Would I rather miss out on watching The Matrix or lose my freedom? Freedom's way more important. And then would I rather go into the bank and cash my check in, or not be allowed because I ain't got a face mask on? Would I rather lose the ability to put money in my bank? In other words, would I rather lose money or lose my freedom? Freedom's way more important. Once I started realising that, that's when the courage started outgrowing the fear. Because instead of focusing on the fear of what might happen, I was focusing on what will happen if you don't listen to the feeling, basically. That was quite powerful. So basically what's happened now is I've thought to myself, there is nothing there is nothing as powerful or as important as freedom. Everything else is smaller than it, and everything else that's fear is linked to all these other things: money, house, job, everything else. All the, I suppose you could say, the physical things, yeah, they're not as important as the freedom. I would rather be homeless and not be able to go shopping. I would rather have nothing but be free than have everything I wanted but be like in a prison, slaved. Because that would be horrible. Yeah. And the other thing is, it goes into when we die. When we die, all these little feelings we're getting, because I think everyone can feel it. Everyone can feel it, but they're not acting on the feeling. Again, because the feeling isn't as, the fear is bigger than the feeling at the minute. But what happens when we die, we're gonna look at all these little feelings, and you're gonna be sort of thinking, well, I didn't act on that feeling because I was scared. It'll keep happening like that, and that's what I think will bring back. It goes into like reincarnation and stuff. It's quite cool. Oh, a little thing here. Black Lives Matter. I feel like that's some sort of smokescreen, like some sort of diversion thing. Because if you think about it, a lot of attention has gone on to that, taking away from these face masks and stuff like that. So what'll happen is by the time that's sort of sorted out, whatever, lots of things will have gone unnoticed. It's almost, I see that as almost like some sort of like diversion thing. There's a little thing here which I noticed. So I went into the shop. I didn't have my face mask on. At first, that was so scary. It felt like, well, it felt horrible. Because it was horrible. It was horrible, but it was exciting. Yeah, it was scary but exciting. And I've always said, if you get those two feelings together, it means you're doing the right thing. But what happened was, there's this bloke. As I walked in, I didn't have my face mask on. This bloke had his face mask on, and he looked at me, and he had this look of like, I don't know, there was some sort of connection going on there. Later on, I'm walking around the shop, and he's got his face mask off. And I thought to myself, imagine if he took his face mask off, because I wasn't wearing one. And that's the sort of thing that happens. It's this domino effect. So I like that. I thought that was cool. And it was almost like that to me was the universe's way of sort of saying, yes, you're doing the right thing here. Little things like that, I like that. Yeah. So again, with these shops, with these face masks, in the shop I work at, they're not actually allowed to say anything. So one of the things is, if somebody walks in not wearing a face mask, they can't say anything. So in other words, people don't realise they don't actually have to wear the face mask. So that was quite cool. So it is again, and I started thinking, what is the reason for that? Is it because they don't want conflict? And then you could sort of start going off on this weird route of, well, maybe the reason they don't want conflict is because if somebody walks in and ain't got a face mask on, and somebody says, oh, you got to wear a face mask, and you say, oh, I don't believe in it, that could start some sort of revolution. So maybe it's sort of like, because people might look at it and say, oh, they ain't got a face mask on because they've got some sort of like illness that stops them or something. But can you not see how absurd this is? You can go into a cafe and you don't have to wear a face mask. People who work in shops don't have to wear face masks. The thing is, if this was some sort of, killing virus, it just doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. And that's the thing. Logically, none of this makes sense. That's the thing that I sort of think to myself, I was going to say, how can people not see that this just doesn't make sense? But I think people can see that it doesn't make sense. But again, it goes into that thing of the fear. The fear is so big that the fear is stopping them from even doing anything. But it is really important, I think, that we take action. So I've put here, the right Reiki Healing gave me clarity. Yeah. And I've put here, yeah, I like this, because for that first week, the best I could do was go to work wearing a face shield and avoid going into shops so that I didn't have to face the conflict or the potential conflict. Basically, it was like an avoidance technique, and that was the best I could do for that first week. And then what I did was I kept focusing on the feeling, and it was telling me, you've got to stop wearing these things. It's really important. And that's when I started focusing on it. But for the first week, the best I could do was wear this face shield at work. So I've put here, if the best you can do right now is wear the mask but not want to, that's fine. Yeah, because I feel like if that's the best you can do, that's better than wearing the mask and not even thinking about it. This is the other thing. It's going to get to a point where people are so used to wearing the face mask, they won't even think about the potential risk to the freedom. Yeah, it will just become the new norm. And that's probably more scary than anything, is how it will just become, people just won't even be thinking about it if not careful. So that's why I said it. If you're at least thinking about it, that's kind of good enough, because that's a little seed. And that little seed might grow, and then at some point you might get a bit more courage where you can say, right, I'm not going to wear it into this shop. So what I did was I said, right, I'm not going to wear it in this shop. Yeah, and then I pushed myself and said, right, let's try the cinema. And I've kept sort of pushing myself a little bit further. Little baby steps again. I put here, too many people are asleep to the truth, believing lies of the virus. And I said, if you believe there's a virus, there is a virus. If you believe there isn't a virus, then there isn't. If we all believe there isn't a virus, then there isn't a virus. And I would love to see what would happen. I would love to see what would happen if everybody just didn't wear the face masks. What would happen then? I feel like what would happen is you would see the true colours of like the governments or something. I don't even think it's the governments, it's something above that. You would see the true colours though, because they would then get really aggressive, I think. Because at the moment they're trying to do it in a way that's sort of subtle. Yeah, very subtle. And it will build up to a point where it is aggressive, but that aggressive, because it will be a little baby step, it will just be another subtle one. And you won't even notice it. It's only at that point after that you would look back and think, what's happened here? And it's all because at the start didn't listen to the feeling, which was saying these face masks are stupid. That's what I think. I've put here, don't let the fear win. Yeah, if your heart says this doesn't feel right, then it doesn't feel right. Because you know in your heart when something's right or not. And so if you can feel that thing that is saying it's not right, and you're not acting, then that's actually on you. That is. Yeah. If the feeling is saying that it is right to wear the face masks, then it is right to wear the face masks. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. The one that there is wrong something with is if you can feel that it's not right, but you're not doing anything. But again, baby step it. Yeah. Focus on that feeling and let the feeling grow, and it will get bigger than the fear. And that's when you get the courage, I think. So I've got to do this with interviewing guests on the podcast. The fear of interviewing guests on the podcast is greater than the courage to do it. So what I've got to do is I've got to focus on the positives of doing it. There's so many amazing things about that. If I focus on that instead of the fear, the courage to do it, it will get bigger than the fear, I think. And then you'll be able to do it. And once you start doing it, the fear will be quite small. I don't think the fear ever goes away. There was a beautiful quote. Where is it? Is it around here? There's a beautiful quote about fear. I think it might be this week's inspirational quote. Let's have a look. What's going on here? I can't get the text file up. I need a mouse really on this thing. Where is it? 126. Oh, I can't get it. Here we go. No. Oh, come on, you bleeding gimp. Little gimp. I'm going to have to edit this podcast now. I can't get it. Maximise. There we go. No, that wasn't it. What was it? I've forgotten now. There was a really cool quote about fear. What was it? What was that quote about fear? It was something about how... Yeah. It was... I know where it was. It was on one of these animes I'm watching. On one of these animes, this anime I'm watching, I'm doing little sketches of the anime as I'm drawing, but also I'm writing down little quotes. Some really nice little quotes here. One of the little quotes was, "A journey is more meaningful with multiple people," which I thought was nice. But this quote here about fear, I thought this was brilliant. So one of the characters said, "Fear is important. It keeps you clear and on guard." Yeah, I think a little bit of fear is good. The problem is when that fear gets so big that it stops you doing stuff that you know you should be doing. So again, it's all about getting the right amount of balance, the right amount of fear. Yeah, using fear for positive things instead of it becoming negative, I suppose. And I said, yeah, the only action I had to do was not wear a mask, but it was scary. It seemed impossible till I did it. Yeah, it seemed impossible to go into a shop without a face mask on until I did it. So in other words, that says to me that there was a thought saying you can't do it, which meant, but until I did it, once I did it, that thought no longer has got no power anymore, because you've proven you can do it. So actions are more important than thoughts, but actions are based off of thoughts. It's quite weird that your thoughts will confirm thoughts, but the thoughts sometimes make you do actions. So in a weird way, the thought is confirming itself by making you do an action, but that happens if you don't realise that the thoughts aren't your thoughts. So if you can make your actions be based off of your own thoughts, which are positive things, then you can start actually creating your own thoughts. Because then your brain, your mind, it will be filled with your thoughts instead of other thoughts. So in other words, you can fill your mind with positive thoughts by taking actions, positive actions, instead of having your actions be based off of the subconscious negative thoughts. It's quite amazing this is why this is weird. This face mask thing has been horrible. This past month, there's a week of it that was probably the worst week of my life, I think, because I felt so helpless. And I just felt so helpless. I've never felt that helpless before. It was really horrible. Yeah, so it's been like the worst thing, but what came out of that was this courage. So it's been like the most amazing thing. It's very weird. So I feel like this thing we're going through right now, this is why I say it's crunch time. I feel like the human race is going through some sort of transformation, and we're going to go into. I feel like we're going to split off into two timelines. Negative one, which would be like a suppressed fear thing, but we're going to go. You can also go into a positive one, which is freedom, and the freedom might not be. It might, on face value, it might be like the Matrix. On the Matrix, the actual Matrix, which is the fear thing, which has suppressed you, which is a fake reality, it looks kind of beautiful on the outside. The reality of it is you're these little batteries feeding the robots. So it's actually quite horrible. But on the surface, it looks positive. The reality in the Matrix is a world filled with, it's not a very nice world really, but the positive thing is you've got hope. You've at least got hope. The other one, you've got no hope. Yeah, the other one, you've got no hope. Because what's happened is the fear has got so big, it has crushed any chance of hope. But in the real reality, which is horrible, but you've got hope. So I feel like that's what would happen actually. I feel like the timelines are going to split off. One will go into a world which would look quite nice, but really everything would be horrible. It'd be suppressed. Nobody would have any freedom. It would be horrible. The positive one, the other timeline, it might be quite rough. Yeah, it might be quite rough. It might be like the world, say for instance, it's after some sort of... Because I feel like what's going to happen is here, I think it's inevitable at some point in not very far, in maybe, I'm not sure, weeks, no, months or years, not very far I think, we're going to have some sort of massive conflict. And it's basically going to be people who are fighting for freedom. And it's going to get to a crunch point, I think, where I think it is inevitable there's going to be some sort of conflict. And that conflict isn't going to be pretty, but it might be the necessary thing to go into the positive timeline. But the result would be you'll be in a positive timeline in some sort of like, I suppose you could say sort of like a wasteland. So it would on the surface it wouldn't look nice, but you would have your freedom. And that freedom, you can get anything out of freedom. You can regrow the world, and you can regrow the world based around freedom. So it would be horrible, but it would actually be the most beautiful thing ever. Whereas the other one, it would look nice on the surface, but it's just going to be, there's no hope. So it's going to just get worse and worse, even though it's already as worse it can get. It's going to get even worse. Yeah. And I feel like that one, the negative bit, because once you've lost your freedom, what is the point if you haven't got freedom? What is the point in being a human if you haven't got freedom? Yeah, I think that's quite a good way to end it. Is what is the point if you haven't got freedom? Freedom is definitely worth fighting for, and I think freedom is also, it's worth losing everything. Because everything you think is important, when you really look at it, it's not important at all compared with freedom. It's quite powerful, I think. Oh, she done another little delicate one. Little kitty. She done another little delicate one. I like that. I got a kitty kiss as well. Got a little kitty kiss. Actually, little kitty's going to sit with us. Little Dennis. Let's see if he's going back to sleep. Little Dennis. This week's little inspirational quote is by somebody called Aung San Suu Kyi. It's AungSanSuukyi. Love this little quote. So this week's little inspirational quote. You can find show notes, I think, at sophielawson.com. And also find a video at youtube.com/SophieLawson. But this week's little inspirational quote is, the only real prison is fear. And the only real freedom is freedom from fear. The only real prison is fear. And the only real freedom is freedom from fear. Aung San Suu Kyi. Chewie from Star Wars. Little Chewie. Chewbacca.